Hi guys, welcome back. I just finished the carrot video. Let's just do this video quickly as possible too, because there's no one to disturb me with this video. So what I have here is I'm going to do the perennial video because deer and rabbit resistant video really. I discussed deer and rabbit resistant vinca in my last couple videos, part 1 and part 2. The vincas I said before I grew because they're deer and rabbit resistant. But I have some perennials here, and I guess it's perennials too. I have some perennials here which I am going to start sowing the seeds, start growing the seeds in about a week or so to get them ready for outside. I'll say about a week because I want to make they're going to grow slower inside with so many of them in one container. But what I'm talking about is the deer and rabbit resistant perennial. So I'm going to start with, for example, my Black-Eyed Susan. So last summer we added some garden beds to the front of the yard, and so it was July, so I had to go out there and find some plants to put into this garden bed. And I did some research because all summer, spring and summer, that point where we did the front bed, a lot of the plants were being eaten by the deer and the rabbit. And it's the most hurtful thing when you think your flower's going to come out, you're going to go out there and see your flower actually finally open, and go out there and see a stem. So I had to basically mesh my entire yard last summer, June, mesh the entire thing. I mean, all of my plants were underneath mesh in the back and the side of my house. That's what I had to do to keep them. After I was putting so many things, I had to throw the mesh over everything. And that was really, really, I guess, inconvenient to start out with. After a while, I had to adjust the netting too as the plants got bigger, and then find hooks to put them in to hold down the plants too. And still, the plants were trying to bite the flowers through the netting, which was quite hilarious. Because I would go there and you could see they were trying to nibble on the plant, but they couldn't actually get to it. They did not like the netting, of course, so they stopped. But the first one is, because this thing could drag on forever, is my Black-Eyed Susan. I am not sure if this thing is focused on my Black-Eyed Susan, but it's my Black-Eyed Susan right here. And this Black-Eyed Susan is what I put in the new garden bed last year, and it was amazing. This thing is deer and rabbit resistant. I think it has some hairy stems, they said, so that's why it's deer and rabbit resistant. They don't like the way that thing tastes. And I noticed that too, because when I put it in, what did I notice? The rabbit was right there in the bed trying to nibble on the flower. And for some reason, they did not eat the flower. The flower was left in the garden bed, and so they never went back. So that's one thing that I did appreciate about the Black-Eyed Susan. I love the bright color, and this thing bloomed. It bloomed for a long time too. It was there for the entire summer into the fall. And this was my Black-Eyed Susan. And then I had another one that was in my yard, and this one was amazing to me. I didn't realize this until it hit me. This is my deer and rabbit resistant, the Shasta Daisy. I bought this thing the first year we moved into this house, and I put it in the garden bed in the front, where the front step is, 2 steps. Because we're in a raised land, so it's raised land. So I go up 1 step and I put it in that, and I go up a 2nd step to get to the front door. And this is what I put in that box-like garden bed that is made by that formation of those 2 steps. So I put this in there, and this thing was growing in. This thing got really big, but for some reason I think I bought a tuber or a bulb and put it in the ground, because this thing, I remember digging a hole and putting something in there. So this is what I placed into the ground, but this thing came back. It comes back every year, and it got so big at one point that I cut it in half. I dug it up and got rid of the second part of it, and so now it's getting big again. But I didn't realize it was rabbit resistant until I realized something. I just thought the rabbits they couldn't get to it as easily as they got to the other plant because of how it was boxed in. But I realized, you know what? Yes, they could, because they got to other plants in that bed. They just left this alone. So this is just beautiful. They say blooms all year. Maybe it's a different variety I had. Maybe I had the tuber variety. But if this thing blooms all year, blooms all summer, mine came up, but it did not bloom all summer. It bloomed for a long time, and other flowers came up, and it just stopped. It got these brown flowers. I had to cut the dead flowers off. and then love the greenery, leave the greenery there because it add green to my garden with other flowers around it. So this is the Shasta daisy. And the other one is the Echinacea. The Echinacea, I don't remember it being called Echinacea. I could be my mistake. I remember growing some, putting something in my new garden bed called Echibeckia. That's what it was called, Echibeckia. It was a new variety, a new version of this thing, but I had this in my garden as Echibeckia, and that's what I remember. I did have this, a reddish, burnt red one, burnt yellow, burnt red Echibeckia in my garden last summer too, when we did a new garden bed. And this one here was also deer and rabbit resistant. This is a new version. I love the color of this one, so I bought this perennial to see how it works. But it's also deer and rabbit resistant. I think that has a nasty taste, and maybe that's why those rabbits left those plants alone. That wasn't a new garden bed. It has a nasty taste, they said, so they left this one alone. I also bought some other variety I haven't used before. This is the lupine. The lupine here. The lupine is it's a perennial, but they don't. If it's not established or fully big enough, they will eat it down. So this thing has to be fully grown or established to leave it alone. So this is the lupine. It looks like the color of it, so I'm going to try the lupine and see how it works. And I will grow it inside the house first and see how that works out when it goes out in the garden. But they said it's deer and rabbit resistant, so I'm going to see that for myself. And then this is the blue columbine here. The blue columbine, they said, is deer resistant and drought tolerant. And I'm going to see how this one works. I just know the way it looks, the color. So I'm going to try this and see if they will leave it alone. This one, it said deer resistant. I'm not sure if it's rabbit. It said deer and other small animal resistant. I'm going to see if it actually works, but I want to try this too in the yard. So I did pick up these 5 perennials, and it was based on the fact that I had the Rudbeckia in my yard and the Echibeckia, that's what I thought it was, in my yard last summer, and they actually grew. So I'm going to try those. I also have here, because I'm planting, guys, these I will start to grow plants about the next week, next 10 days, because it says 6 to 8 weeks. I do the 8-week thing, so I'm going to try this before the last frost, and I always go about 2 to 3 weeks before the last frost to get a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be. So I'm going to do that here, and then to get them established too, a week of establishment outside, so then to count those weeks into my 6 to 8 weeks, because I have more than 6 to 8 weeks left to get this before my last frost. I also have some plants I'm going to grow, sow now in my pot. And these are I've just bought this one to open these things. This is my African marigold. And I researched this last summer too. So the African marigold is deer and rabbit resistant. I specifically bought this African marigold for this. Because when I put my marigolds out, they eat them too. They eat them until they get really big and they leave them alone for some reason. But when they're out, when you get them from the store, they're small that way. I come back, I see stems. So this one here, I'm hoping to leave it alone, and I'm going to put them, the vincas, around the other one, because the vincas always deter them when they're there. But I heard that the smell of the marigold also deters some animals. That's why I plant marigolds in my yard. But I'm going to try the African marigold. This is not a perennial, but it says this one is also deer and rabbit resistant, so I'm going to plant that. And then another thing that I also plant in my yard are which I'm going to plant now, sow now, is the zinnias. And I have zinnias which I've kept, if you can see the box, which I keep. I've kept them every year, so I'm going to plant some of those too, but I have these here because I don't think zinnia seeds grow are as prolific the year after you collect them. I've never found, a few will come up, but not all. So I'm going to put a ton of seeds in a thing and hope some come up from my collected batch. But I bought these, and this is the California Giant mixed color. This is a different type of zinnia. This is the California Giant. So 2 different types of zinnias here. So I love when they're very tall. So I'm going to plant these 2 zinnias too into the yard. Why I plant these zinnias is because I find them to be deer and rabbit resistant too. And that is when they get big enough, when they're smaller, the rabbit or whatever animal, deer will eat them down. But when they get bigger, they're left alone. And this is another flaw that I will see in my yard when they get bigger are the zinnias. They're all over the yard. And for some reason, the deers and the rabbits just leave them alone when they get big. When they're small, I'm always trying to protect them. I'll go out there, the first flower is going to come out, and the top is bitten off. But for some reason, when I have a bunch of flowers on them, they leave them alone. So I'm going to try to get these things established, protect them for a while, and then I will have them in my yard because for some reason, they leave them alone. Because I don't cover these plants in the yard, but they're still there when I go back. So I'll have my zinnias and my vincas grown in my yard if nothing else is left. If there's nothing left, it will be my zinnias and my vincas grown in the yard. Okay? Two other plants I should say that I actually also grow, which I found out last summer when I was researching. We put the new garden beds in, is the sage and the lavender. We went to the store when we did the new garden beds, and I did the research, and we got some sage, and I got some sage from was it sage? Oh my gosh, sage. It's called by a different name too. But the lavender. But I had a red sage from Etsy. I got 2 of those from Etsy last year, and I got some sage from Home Depot along the lavender. And they said that there was a smell that deterred them, and I couldn't smell a single thing. But when we put those plants in the car, the smell was strong. And so we knew, yep, the smell does deter. What we couldn't smell out there in the open yard of Home Depot was very strong in the car. So it does give off a smell. But I will say the sage, and the sage had 4 in the pot, which I love. And so I took those 4 and put into the 2 garden beds that we created, 2 of the garden beds, the 2 semicircle garden beds that we created. And then the lavender we put in the smaller bed, and so that one will stay there. So if they walk up from the lawn, they will hit the lavender first before they hit the small bed first, the lavender before they hit the larger bed. And then we took the sage and I put 1 from Etsy into the large bed, 2 from Home Depot in the small bed, and the other 2 from Home Depot in the large bed. And maybe those things help to deter the rabbits from the echinacea and the echinacea and the rudbeckia, but it did work. Because one thing I will say, that garden bed, after that first nibble from the rabbits, were left untouched all summer. And believe me, I used to get up every morning and look through my window to see if my plants were still there, and for some reason those things were still there. And what I love about these plants was that they did not bloom in the summer. They were fall blooms. They started in the summer, the end of summer, to put out flowers, those purple flowers, red flowers, but they were a complete flower show in September and October. We cut them down. We cut down I want to say the sage. I always confuse it, the sage. We cut down the sage. We cut the sage and those tall purple flowers around Halloween time. You know, they need to go. Winter's coming, and I'm moving everything indoors, so we cut those things down at that time. But I'm telling you, it was beautiful to see. And then we have this other plant. I can't remember its name right now. Very hard with names. It's right there. And it was white. They had the purple, the white, and then some of the rudbeckias were still blooming the yellow in that area right there. And that's what was there. And the vincas were still blooming because I put a couple vincas in that. Not a lot. I just put a couple because next to certain plants to see that will deter the rabbits and the deers. But whatever was happening in those garden beds, they were left untouched. They were the only garden beds left untouched. And I think it's because they had the sage and the lavender, and they had deer-resistant perennials. So guys, I know this video is getting too long. I just want to show you what my perennials were and what I use to deter my deers and my rabbits. Have a good one, guys. Bye.